Hi, my name is Kate Mackenzie, and I'm welcoming you to this wonderful episode with Russell Kane. He has inspiringly written a book called Son of a Silverback about his alpha male dad and how it was as a sensitive son to grow up with such a dominant father, but also how to love and honour that father through the writing of his book, and how it shows how he was able to come through that experience and be the comedian that he is today. So it's a great honour to talk with him and also to learn about his passion to help men express themselves and how that's such an important part for him, where he wants to help others. And he's created a radio for men where men are encouraged to ask questions and learn about their own mental health. So I really hope that you enjoyed this. I really did. I was very inspired, and look forward to hearing what you think. Thanks.
Lovely. So, hi.
The technology will get how you do the technology will get gradually better throughout the interview, because just for the benefit of the people listening, I'm setting up as we're speaking, as I'm already 40 minutes late, thinking I was 20 minutes early. So it will gradually get better and better and better until it'll be amazing. But how are you?
Very good, very good. I'm thrilled to be talking to the best comedian in Britain in 2020.
According to lefty libtards in The Guardian, that is.
Well, that's where we want to look, isn't it, for the best comedian in Britain today. So, I mean, I am absolutely thrilled to be speaking to you right today, in the day that is the day that's announced you're the best. So thank you so much.
Do you know what it is with The Guardian? They're not very, it can be a bit not very well liked by artists because they're quite harsh.
Right.
But the industry does sort of listen. And although it does trickle down a bit as well to the more sort of Daily Mail, Sun reading members of the audience. So
Sound.
Well, one sec.
Oh, brilliant.
3, 2, 1, and we're in.
Right, welcome Russell Kane.
That should be much better sound for you now.
That's absolutely amazing. So welcome Russell Kane, Comedian of the Year, as told by The Guardian today, and writer of Son of a Silverback, which I'm sure is going to heal many people, certainly me. It's honestly one of the best books. I couldn't put it down. Laughed.
I'm glad to hear it.
It's like poetry, but it's like poetry that's punchy, you know, and
yes,
it's
and sweary,
punchy, and it really evokes that guy, but with so much love, and so much healing. And I mean, I'm so moved. My dad was a boxer, and my dad is a kind of alpha male, different type, but that kind of alpha male, old school. And
there's a lot of them about.
It was so healing for me, I'm sure for so many people. And it was very, very moving, because it was it was you and your dad, and how you moved through that, how you grew through that, and how you had to curve your way through it, you know, through being around such a dominant figure, and yet you did it with so much love and so much care. And so it was like a homage to him.
It was a bit of an artistic choice as well, because I know through experience and through doing it stand up and from trying to write fiction, there's only so far you can go with making a main character unappealing. So you have to sort of leaven in some of that sort of tenderness and pathos in an almost cynically artistic way, because it is a memoir, but it's also a piece of sustained comedic writing and reflection. So there is an art to it, as there is with all language you have to use. So yes, everything in there that's true is true. Yes, everything is in there that's happened. Yes, it's all my real feelings, but I chose what words, what paragraphs, what order, how to describe those things. And I made a conscious decision to sort of lift them and lighten them and give it humor.
Was that healing for you? Because the what was amazing for me was you talked about class, you talked about dysfunction, you talked about violence in real detail, scary violence, but with such artistry. And I'm just wondering, you know, sometimes these things crush us, squash us, But I'm just wondering if, obviously, you've risen to the top, but was it healing for you to write that book?
Was it healing? I think I've already passed that stage. If I'm being brutally honest, I think I passed that about 10 years ago. Any healing or forgiving or thinking about how my dad was a little boy and he too was damaged and I needed to forgive myself, and any feelings of anger, that was all resolved a good decade ago. That was probably that resolving of that is probably, well, that wound is probably what led to that, which is my proudest achievement, believe it or not. That is the Edinburgh Comedy Award I'm pointing to,
Yes.
just behind me. It
Congratulations.
used to be called the Perrier Award, and so that was in 2010. So in 2009, I would say that's when I got on top of those feelings and moved to a place of forgiveness. Because when you're in a place of true forgiveness, the humor can truly be light.
Yes.
You can do humor when you're not in a place of forgiveness, but it tends to have like real artistic weight, which is no bad thing. Look at Hannah Gadsby's Nanette, probably one of the best comedy shows in the last 20 years, if not more. But it's had so much gravitas, weight and anger behind it. Now, that is her artistic choice. I want to be silly and funny, accessible and a bit more mainstream. So I knew that if I wanted to be, not that she's not mainstream, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Vapid. I wanted to be more obvious, and there's no way of doing that type of comedy if you're holding like a heavy ball in your heart. Yeah. So, and the book was the written version of that, written from a place of distance and knowledge. Because my dad, you remember, Dad died in 2003. It's long enough.
Yeah, and I have seen some other interviews with you, so I know that you did the Hoffman method, and
that's when I did it, 2009.
Oh, did you? Okay, and okay, just the year before. Okay, do you think that was significant?
No, it was the soul. It was the soul thing. It wasn't significant. It was the soul and total and only thing that completely just fixed any. I mean, I wasn't like a mentally ill person. I work a lot with mental health actually, but I've never been on medication or had a psychologist or anything like that. But we've all got our little tattered edges, and I just wanted to get rid of my tattered edges and become even more creative and even lighter and even happier. You can always improve. I always say to people, you don't have to have anything wrong to go on a Hoffman. It's just like you don't have to have a dirty face to have an exfoliation, but your skin will still glow after you exfoliate, regardless of whether you were covered in mud or whether you just had your normal face.
Yeah.
And I was surprised when I exfoliated how many dead cells and how much shine there was underneath. It's just, I don't know if it's the same for everyone, but it's completely and utterly chrysalis transformative. I went in on day one, residential. I came out 8 days later, and my life was changed over 8 nights completely. And forever.
Wow. And you just did that? You didn't do other therapy or
nothing? I've never ever anything in my life. The only other thing I've ever done in my life was for nerves. When I first started stand up, I did like some cognitive behavioral therapy to help me with my nerves and to try and. I mean, nerves aren't a bad thing. I mean, you are programmed as a human being to fear physical danger and social rejection. You shouldn't really hypnotize or cognitive behavioral therapy those away. You are supposed to be scared of social rejection. It's what stops you getting your knob out in Asda or your boobs out in Lidl. It's what stops you. It's what stops you getting into a fight in a pub or putting yourself in sexual danger. If you're a woman, you've got certain things in place to protect you. But as a stand-up, you have to disable one of those on purpose.
Yes.
The fear of 500 people excluding you. Now, if that happened back in the Neanderthal days or back in the early human days, you'd be dead. You would have no food, no support system. You'd be hunted, raped, killed by another tribe. So you are hardwired to be accepted by 1,000 baying people in front of you. Mm-hmm. The body doesn't differentiate between that and you're about to be clubbed to death by a mob. Anyone who's tried stand-up will know what I'm talking about. Your whole body and knees go just like before a fight, if you've ever been unlucky enough to be in one. So that's the only other thing I've had therapy for, was for the physical symptoms of nerves, not so much the mental symptoms. I wasn't like, I'm rubbish, it's going to be awful out there. That I would have found that easier to fix. It was the physical sickness, diarrhea, collapsing.
Oh, I see.
Face just fucked from stage fright. But apart from that and the Hoffman, touch wood, I mean, I've done like little things where I've done like a face-to-face thing like this on Zoom to try and make me use my phone less with a therapist, like real specific, like laser therapies. Yeah. But I've never been like my relationship with my daddy therapy. Yeah. I didn't do it my whole life and I've never done it since. But my God, did I do it for 8 days at the Hoffman. It's like a nuclear bomb. So instead of
Yeah.
constant radiotherapy, I fired a chemo bomb into my whole body over 8 days. Might not have worked, but it did. It's unbelievable. And I can't talk. You have to sign a non-disclosure agreement when you're there, purely because I would say 70% of how Hoffman works is the surprise of not knowing what's going to come the next day when you wake up.
Yeah.
It's sort of, that's part of the physical shock and mental shock of what happens to you when you're there. I'm making it sound terrifying. It's not. It's just very surprising and different. So I can't really go into too much detail. I will say there are physical elements, nothing like weird and culty. Your clothes are on and nothing cringy. It's a bit American-y in places, which most British people reject. A lot of group stuff, which again, I like to be in a room with a. Sorry about that. My idea was always to be in a room with a therapist, on my own, talking to my problems. Not like, hey, Jan's going to share the problems with the group. I hate shit like that. But that was totally what I needed.
Yeah.
All I can say is it worked for me, and I still use the tools every day. You come away with what's called these little leaflet of tools, and you can, if you're having this trouble with this, you can use this meditative tool. So it's expensive, it's extreme, it's inconvenient. Who has 8 days they can do without phone contact if you've got kids and a job and everything? But my God, it'll be the best thing you ever do.
And did a friend just say, do this?
I think I must have been off of Google or something. That's all I can think of. I was running up to the Edinburgh show of 2009, that run. So the August 2009 run. So that was the last year I got nominated and didn't win that Big Bad Boy award behind me.
Oh.
And I was having some sort of takeaway meal with my girlfriend, and I lost my temper over something stupid. I was only ever lost my temper against myself or inanimate objects. That was it's the most so stupid. If you saw it in a sitcom, you'd laugh your head off. But I got annoyed with objects like laptops or car doors or myself. That was my target, me. And I just it lost my temper. It sounds like something out of Laurel and Hardy. Headbutted this plate. It sounds so stupid with Chinese on it. I just headbutted it. And that was it. I would always do one thing and it was over. I wasn't like a scary person who ran around the house smashing. I would just do one thing, place through a screen. It had to be mine. Otherwise, it didn't get rid of the temper. It has to be something dear to me.
Yeah.
And of course, this plate just hit me at the wrong angle. And my God, it looked like someone had tried to kill someone. There was blood up the wall. There's blood. I had rice in my eyes. I thought it was bone. I thought I'd crack my skull open. I had special fried rice. I got stitched up at the hospital, and I'm telling lies at the hospital because the domestic abuser team are asking questions about my then female partner, thinking she's beat me up or something, or thinking I've been in a fight in a pub and I'm trying to hide it from the police. And I was like, I could have fucking blinded myself. This is too much. So I think I must have just Googled. And they must have been doing a promoted post, and I saw that Goldie had done it, who's like me, working class in entertainment, not someone to do some Ponzi therapy type thing lightly. And it just said, I'm really sorry, but people keep emailing me. It said, when you're really, really serious about change, when you really have had enough, like when you're ready to give up smoking and you really will, this is the place to go. And then I started reading about it and I just went from there.
Brilliant.
There have been loads of incidents like that. Whereas it's not strong enough to call itself self-harming. I wasn't like locked in the bathroom with my self-harming kit going, Daddy love me. It was just a temper where I was punching things, but making sure I got injured when I did it.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't go as far to say it was self-harming, but I wouldn't go as far to say as the damage was accidental. Yeah. It was, I would snap a door handle off, but I would make sure it continued so it ripped into my arm afterwards, that sort of thing. So half and half.
Yeah.
And half idiot male temper, half goth wanting to harm themselves. What was weird was, as I was getting towards 30, it was ramping up. Now, those behaviors are normally, I think 80% female, maybe 90% female behaviors. That's the first thing that's weird. And the other thing that's weird is 90% of people start to do less of that as they head towards 30. So I've got two things there that are incredibly unusual. I'm a bloke and it's ramping up.
Yeah.
What the fuck was that all about? All I can think of, it's because I'd put myself in an environment where I was experiencing a late adolescence. Most comedians and people, rock stars or whatever you want to call it, they get into it about 17 or 18 and they sort of peak at 24, 25, and then they go into the late part of their career. Well, I hadn't even started doing anything till I was 28. So my career structure is like that. I'm right now hitting what I should have been at 25 later in life.
Right.
The industry doesn't care, and my artistic part of my brain doesn't care, but my body and emotions do.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm living a younger life. So maybe that shit came to the surface later. That's all I can think of.
Got it. And when you know, I know you do podcasts. You do one about boys don't cry, and you do another
Yeah.
one about evil for the BBC about evil people, whether they're evil or not.
Yeah,
Is that
cancel culture. It's a cancel culture podcast, in effect.
ah?
Do you cancel or do you keep? Picasso's art is great. If I tell you something about Picasso, you've got to choose: keep the artist or throw him in the bin with Harvey Weinstein.
Wow,
We play that game.
brilliant game. Because you know, one thing that comes across from you and all your interviews is you're so aware of intersectionality and diversity and how they intercross and how people suffer. So like coming out of binary, black and white, all or nothing, and looking at the details. That's what, did you come up with that idea
Yeah,
about evil
yeah.
genius?
So it was the
Yeah.
night after. It was the night after the Harvey Weinstein stuff. I had a meeting at the BBC about ideas for Radio 4, and I had them all written up on this posh document. But in the meeting, I said in the pub last night, we were trying to decide as men, if I watch a movie that says produced by Harvey Weinstein, does that make me a bit rapey
Yeah,
just by watching it?
yeah,
In the same way that if I dance to Michael Jackson's music, if I even do a hee, you feel like you've touched a kid on some
yeah.
800th time removed level. The art's tainted for me. I can't put Michael Jackson on anymore.
Oh,
I can't put R. Kelly on anymore. Definitely, I've got a daughter. There's no fucking way I'm playing R. Kelly in the house. So does that count for Harvey Weinstein? I'm like, my God, there is no grey area. You either listen to Michael Jackson or you don't. You don't listen to Michael Jackson with a caveat in your head. And so I said, that'd be a great game to play with historical figures. And I said, and then it dawned on me, oh my God, we live in an age where we don't dare put labels on things. I'm not even allowed to say, I even got some stick for talking about mental health on Jonathan Ross at the weekend because I said men and women. So we've got to the point now where if I specify men and women exist, people on the spectral or diverse or non-binary community assume I'm excluding them, which is just ridiculous. If I was to speak about prostate cancer and Alzheimer's, I'm not talking about diabetes because I don't think it exists. I just happen to be talking about those two things because they're the two things I know. So the only two genders I know are men and women. Doesn't mean others don't. But we got to the point now where we daren't label anything. Nothing has a label. Nothing has meaning. Nothing's quite good. Nothing's quite bad. Nothing's black. Nothing's white. There's not a Britain. There's not a thing. There's not a blue. There's not a sky. But you're either cancelled or you're not. So we live at the same time in an amorphous blob where nothing has definition. It's at the same time is a simplistic black and white culture at the same time. Those both things exist. Now that is toxic coexistence.
Yeah.
We either live in an on-off culture like we used to, or we live in a postmodern amorphous everything's up for discussion culture, which obviously as a lefty idiot I'm more up for. What I find confusing is the mixing of the both. If I call myself I'm a man and I don't want to hear anything about it, I'm he and him and I'm a man, and say it too forcefully, I'll be in trouble for saying I'm a man.
Yeah.
And yet I could say the wrong thing on Twitter and go, he's cancelled, nothing he said before counts, he's gone forever. Both those things could happen to me in one day.
Right.
Now, they do not add up.
Yes.
Philosophical positions.
Yeah.
You either got an open mind where if a comedian Johnny Smith, I'm assuming there isn't really a Johnny Smith, but if a comedian Johnny Smith tweets a joke and he accidentally says something racist and everyone's like, you shouldn't have done that, he should be able to apologize and get on with his life, because we would look in a granular non-binary way at the rest of his career and everything else he stands for to judge whether he's a racist or not. But we wouldn't. We would go, boom, cancelled, gone, tweeted, deleted, BBC One show, gone, cancelled forever. But at the same time, if the same person wanted to be gender non-binary or talk about their ethnic background in an interesting and ambiguous way, we would accept that. I just found that blew my mind. So I thought, I've got to make a show that takes the piss out of that. Let's call it Evil Genius. And I try to book really diverse, interesting guests to fuck with their heads even more.
Brilliant.
At the end, they have to vote evil or genius.
Brilliant.
We did Malcolm X the other day, the biggest, like one of the biggest heroes of racial politics in America. And I made my panel vote bin or hero, even though I told them some despicable things. It's very uncomfortable for Guardian reading leftists, Green Party members like myself, to reflect on the fact we're actually simplistic binary bellends.
Yeah. No, it's so interesting because nobody is one way or the other. Everyone has their diversity and their intersectionality and their,
except for when it comes to cutting someone's head off online.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't understand, because it's the most horrible. It's never happened to me, so I'm not. This is not personal. It's the most horrible, despicable thing you can do to someone is to cut off their income, their life, the goodwill, their love, their career, without looking properly
Yeah.
at the intersectionality and non-binary nature of their opinions. You
And,
cannot have it both ways.
yeah, yeah. And yet some people have handled this being cut off really, really well. And
Yeah.
it seems to be the way they handle it. Do you know? It seems to be how they handle it. And example, Stephen Fry, he left a show and walked out on the first night.
Yes.
It was considered he would never work again.
Yeah.
And then he made a documentary on being bipolar, which I think he's not diagnosed now as bipolar, but at the time he made a documentary on mental health and discussed it, and he was completely embraced. It was as if people are willing to be kind of vulnerable and say what's going on, there can be a different, in a way, if somebody tells their story, which is what you're doing with
but thank goodness for that, because what you're saying there is mental health is put in a slightly different category. Thank God. So when people have genuinely, like when Kanye went off on one and wanted to be president, we didn't all throw his rap albums in the bin. We quite rightly thought maybe the guy is struggling. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Evil Genius was my playful way of taking, obviously we only do dead people from history, and saying, making my panel have to vote one way or the other at the end, evil or genius. It's been smash hit. I mean, it's a top 10 BBC podcast. You got Peter Crouch and stuff in that list. So to do that with cultural politics is hard. It's not like I'm not talking about football or boobs or makeup. I'm talking about culturally reassessing Gandhi. And it's up there as a mainstream podcast. Gandhi was a racist, by the way, if you're wondering the first law Gandhi ever got passed in Parliament, moved into law. Gandhi, your robe wearing poster boy of peace. The first law he ever got passed was in South Africa, was a separate queue for black people from Indian people, because he didn't think black people were human. He thought they were animals and didn't want to queue with them in the post office.
Wow. Unbelievable.
So I throw things like that on my panel, and they're like all arguing, and we make it funny as well. We make sure we make it funny, and then in the end, Muhammad Ali attended a Ku Klux Klan convention.
That's wild.
Yeah, because he was so sure that white people were evil and needed to be separate. They were so racist. He actually agreed with the KKK. Okay, I don't want to be lynched, but I agree with racial separatism. We spoke at a Klans meeting.
Isn't that interesting?
So I just love headfuck things like that mess with. I like to defend liberalism and leftism. And the slight problem we have on the left is a lack of sense of humour, and it absolutely kills progress dead, and hands a massive weapon to the people on the right, who, fair play to them, have a great sense of humour. They take it all the time, jokes at their expense. But when you can't take a joke against your position, it weakens your position, in my opinion. I'm not talking about punching downwards to groups without a voice, like trans groups or people with mental health. I'm talking about people on the same level should be able to exchange satire with each other. They should be able to. And so this is my way of just poking my satirical stick and just saying, yeah, what's going on here when we laud Gandhi?
Brilliant. It's brilliant. And you know, in your book, you were saying that there's something comes over some women, that they go for the guy who's rough. When you could go for the sweet, nice, nerdy beta male, they go for the guy.
They go for the beating male instead.
The beta male, exactly. and I just wondered, did you ever talk to your mum about that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Recently.
Yeah. And how was it?
Recently. I think that's the only thing she got upset for when she read the book, was she was like, I feel like I should have selected a different man. I was like, oh my God, that was a horrific thing for my mum to feel. I was like, no, I've just given an honest account. I said, Mum, I wouldn't be sat here. I wouldn't be earning the money I am earning if you hadn't taken a particular set of tools and hit the rock in that way. I'm just lucky this shape came out. Not everyone comes out the other side of the quarry with a random shape that fits. The random combination of my DNA with that hammer produced this shape. A different boy or girl would have come out and been, messed up. So we squashed that dead. And it's just, it's uncomfortable. We have to talk in really simplistic, unfashionable binary biology now. But there seems to be something in a lot of girls that is sexually exciting, at least for a short period of their life, or if you're role playing on a date night, or if you just fancy a shag, to be this sort of rough and ready ape of a man is just sexually for whatever reason. In the same way, you know, I'm a guy talking to you in a book-filled room with a first in English and sociology, a daughter, banging on about feminism. But do I occasionally have lecherous thoughts about a bimbo with big boobs? Yeah. I mean, I hate myself, but that's just life. There's the lizard part of my brain cannot be penguin classic away. And
Yeah.
sometimes I look at a girl in a bikini on Instagram and think, whoa.
Yeah.
And yet I did, my mastermind subject was Evelyn Waugh. Go figure. So there's something in the base of the skull that fucks with men and women. It makes 45-year-old men run off with glamour models. It makes 25-year-old women go out with Terry the mechanic, who's probably going to do coke and go to prison and cheat on you. But there's something sexually exciting about it. We have to hope we learn and grow out of those sexual excitements, or that we use them just for one-off experiences, and long-term we choose something more stable.
No, so when you said you were involved in mental health, do you mean your podcast, Boys Don't Cry?
No, I mean, I'm an ambassador for Rethink, which is a massive NHS mental health charity to do with schizophrenia and other serious mental health conditions. I'm an ambassador for Calm, which is all about anxiety. And I'm also an ambassador for the Prince's Trust, which take people that are just fucked on the floor, broken, and have got no prospects in their teenage years, and build them up into people like, for example, Idris Elba, who's a Prince's Trust graduate.
Wow.
So I work on those three things, and I don't post about it all the time. I let them post. I feel like it means more if I'm not doing it. I do my charity work flag 24/7.
What do you do for them?
Events, fundraising, talks at their events. I do stand-up events where I fundraise, for example. I've done some big events for the Prince's Trust, auctions, I've hosted shooting days for Lords of the Manor, where I do stand up and get all the rich lovely people to put their money into a hat. You know, just practical things that I can do, rather than just being a pouting face on a website, or being an Instagram post where I look like I care.
Yeah. And now, what do you feel about class right now? Because you're class, because you're very eloquent about class and what it's like to come from certain place, or even different levels, upper working, lower working. You know, you're very eloquent about all the different levels of class and what goes on and what changed for you when you met a middle class girl, and all these different intersections. And now you seem to be like, obviously you've given yourself that chance to move around. What's your thoughts on how it can be or should be or whatever for people?
Well, my thoughts are that social mobility has gone down. So if you're born to a single mum in a tower block, you're less likely to climb up the food chain than you were 30 years ago, 40 years ago. That's just a statistical fact. It's uncomfortable. I wish it wasn't true, but it is a fact. Nothing you can do about it. So that's that. So that pisses me off. So when I was born, yes, I'm sort of from the top of working class, I suppose, even though I'd actually started in a mother and baby shelter just purely because we were waiting for our council house to be allocated. But I can say truthfully, my mum lived in a shared room shelter until they got the council flat sorted, then the council flat, then the council house. Then, thanks to Margaret Thatcher, another thing that's not fun to say, my dad bought his own council house, and the rest is history. But that's less likely to happen now, because some of the things which were unfair to most working class people have been removed. So for the tool like buying your own council house, stupid and fucks up lots of people. But for a tiny minority of council estate people like myself, it was great. The 11 plus, totally unfair and scars children for life. Yet for a tiny minority of working class children, great. Not me, I went to a comprehensive. So we've removed quite rightly some of those things, but sadly out with the bathwater has gone the tiny slither of council estate kids that were going upwards. I mean, the ones that weren't going upwards never were going upwards anyway. But there was a little bit in between that were skimmed off if they were bright enough, or their dad was earning enough money manual labouring to put deposit down on the council house, could have got out.
Yeah. What would you suggest? Obviously, you're doing your bit with all the bits you're doing, but with such unfairness in society.
What would I do? You see, I'm a sort of socially left, but I would say if ever I went into politics, which my God, my comedy career would need to be down the toilet before I did. But I do think I would be good at it. For the record, I do think I've got something
Yeah,
to say,
absolutely.
and because once you've done stand up, you're sort of immune to people calling you the C word.
Yeah,
It doesn't bother you.
yeah,
There's nothing worse you can do than stand up,
yeah,
for fearing public response and opinion.
yeah,
Um, but economically, I'm a realist, and I just don't think if you start charging people 70% tax, it just doesn't work. It's too easy to hide your money. I'm not talking about people like me. I'm talking about properly rich people that
yeah,
are earning 10, 20, 30 million a year
yeah,
and more, billions. It just doesn't work.
yeah,
Facebook pay your tax. It won't work.
yeah,
It's just a remark online. They'll just fuck off to Dublin. You'll have less money in the pot.
yeah,
So for a lot of people now, it's good because I straddle both worlds. All my friends on my boys group are still tilers, plumbers, blah blah blah, but I live in a world where I see a lot of rich people and know how rich people
yeah,
think.
yeah,
Once you go beyond 45%, something in people's head goes, fuck you, you're not having more than half my money.
sorry.
It's human nature. It's not British nature. It's not selfish Western capitalist imperialist nature. Well, it is a little bit Western, but we're not going to turn into China. We're not going to be an Eastern communitarian culture. It's not going to happen. Let's have politics that work with what we have on the ground, not with what we Corbynistically would like it to be. That's why I
Yeah,
don't vote Corbyn. So for me, the biggest opportunity is the environment. It's something that even the fucking crusty old Brexit granddads will start to have to believe when they start breathing in fire and petrol fumes in about 10 years. So that for me is a brilliant way to make money. Don't worry about what all your armpit hair lentil eaters like me think. Worry about what your capitalist people think. Let's monetize the green industry. Let's get fucking filthy, stinking rich, saving the environment. Two birds, one stone. Me and you got your Caroline Lucas at one end. You've got your Jacob Rees-Mogg at the other. They will find something to agree on if you can monetize the green industry. And all these people that are going to lose jobs through automation, let's retrain them and reskill them in the green and upcoming tech green industries. People are going to need aircon in their houses. They are. Every one of us in 50 years will need aircon. This country's going to be hot. Let's think about that. How can we work with the environment? That way we're not taxing people in their pocket, but we're creating an economy. If you think how rich you are if you live in Silicon Valley, they're not rich there because they increase the tax rate. They're rich because everyone lives around all of these exciting industries like Apple and PC that create money. So let's create money in new areas. Let's work together on that. We do need a fairer society. We need better education. I think we probably need something, not like a grammar school, but something that works out how to get bright working class kids back into attaining, because mixing them all together in the same school doesn't work. We need to sort the housing situation out.
Mm. I just interviewed Ruby Wax, who did a book called And to the Future with Love. And it's all about, she visited loads of places like Patagonia, which they make sweatshirts, but they make them in a sustainable way where people get on, where people go, the workers are treated well, people feel good. And she basically, what she was talking about, a lot of these things, communities called GEN, where they're communities that sustain each other, and conscious capitalism, which is maybe what you're talking about.
Yeah.
How to make it work. Yeah.
But what people need to realize is at least 40% of our country aren't sat round waiting. If they hear the term conscious capitalism, things like that, you just lose them.
Yeah.
We need some practical politics, not done by people like Boris and all that lot. I mean, I can't even believe they're in charge, which are just cruel and disconnected and just fucking idiots. Neither do we need your Corbyns of the world going around on his bike. It's just, you're just pissing off everyone else. You need someone I would put Caroline Lucas in charge tomorrow. Someone like that who can talk to everyone.
Yeah.
And there's no point in excluding these people that voted Brexit. There's no point in discounting them. There's no point in telling them they're wrong. There's no point in telling people who worry about immigration they're wrong. It just doesn't achieve anything. It doesn't achieve anything except you feel a little bit better as you order a fucking seeded hummus bloomer in Islington. Until we start to work together and bring everyone in, you need some centrist badass in who act, but the problem with centrism is it feels so like cop out. They call it centrist dad, but you can actually be centrist and be radical by saying we're going to make a shitload of money. All I care about is cash. I want to put money in people's, use the language of a fucking cynical capitalist, but in a way that moves like a liberal.
Yeah.
The only way to do that, as far as I can see, is the environment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it also it needs looking at.
Have you been nabbed?
COVID-19 is bad, you'll be praying for a COVID year in about 10 years.
Have you been nabbed by the Green Party?
Well, I'm a member, but I am a paid up member, but I don't put my politics out there.
No.
Keep them quite quiet. If you watch my rants, I make fun of Boris a lot, but that's only because he's in charge. It would be no different if Keir Starmer was in charge.
And when now you move in so many different circles, do you find that I know you've got all your mates from when you were young, but do you also hang out with comedians as well?
No, I don't. I wish I did. I mean, I was texting Rob Beckett last night, just checking in how he is, because I know he's in tier 4 and his mum's in tier 4 and he's quite family focused like me. So just asking him what he's doing, and because obviously my mum's in tier 4, so I just can't see her. Even though she's in a childcare bubble I actually phoned the police yesterday just to check the law, because I've got to be so careful. I'm in the public eye. Yeah. I want anyone who's seen at my house, I want it to be totally and properly legal. Yes. I don't want to be like a Kay Burley or a Rita Ora. Yeah. And even though my mum's in a childcare support bubble, helping with my daughter, she's still not allowed to come and help over Christmas because she's coming from tier 4. So that's why I was messaging a couple of other comics, but mostly my social life is my mates from when I was 16, and my family, my mum, my aunties. I keep it
amazing. Oh, that's what I was going to ask you. How did your family feel about being in your book? Family and friends.
Every name was changed significantly and properly, so and I let everyone know that beforehand. Most people loved it. I haven't had any negative feedback. I'm assuming that the disguised girlfriends, if they worked it out, hated it. I had one ex write to me and say, is there anything I need to be worried about? But I think she was more offended by the fact I totally excised her completely. She's not even mentioned.
Right.
And I think she went from being worried to offended. She wasn't included. You can't win, can you?
And when you said you'd love to hang out with more comedians, who would you?
I wish it was that type of profession where we were all going to the pub, but once you get to a certain level, I mean, I don't even have a support act. I do 2 45-minute sections. So,
wow.
And if I get a night off, am I going to go to the pub with 2 other comics, or am I going to take the dolls upstairs and do a game with my daughter Minna? I'd rather do that any day of the week. No disrespect to the other comics.
So you don't.
I'd love to be closer to people like Rob. I've got a lot in common with Rob Beckett. I feel like there's loads of people out there I feel like I could be mates with. That's from that working class, real background. No one in their family's ever done anything, and suddenly you find yourself in this position. But when it comes to it, I just love spending time with my family. I'm awful at. I'm not a very good friend because I'm just sort of addicted to Lindsay and my daughter, and
brilliant.
I love being indoors. I just love being indoors.
It's so brilliant. I saw your act about the feisty partner and the relaxed partner and the sleeping and the not sleeping partner, which I really adored. And I work with something called bridging, and we call them turtles and octopuses. So the octopus is like the on it, reaching, doing, playing, and the turtle's like, just leave me alone.
Except when we've had a drink and go out, and then it reverses. Interestingly enough, I read a really amazing book recently. Is it still up there? Erickson, his name is. He talks about the 4 personality types. It's still a bestseller now: red, blue, green, yellow. Have you read it?
No.
The 4 personality colours. It's still at number 1 in the book charts.
Brilliant.
And he says there's 4 colours, and so you most of us are a mix of 2. Very few of us are purely 1. But your classic yellow is, look at me, I just want everyone to be having fun the whole time. Why aren't you laughing? Oh my God, are you having fun? I'm just creating a joke. I know it's a funeral, but I'm going to do a tap dance. And a red personality is ball buster. I don't care. Get it done. Make money. Work Christmas Day. Don't care. Fucking ambitious. Do it, done it. Never been in debt. So I'm obviously what's called a red yellow. I've got massive amounts of money making, badass, ball busting mixed with, look at me, I'm a clown. I'm singing a song. I'm a classic red yellow. And whenever red yellows get drunk and go to Christmas parties, they normally reverse. And all the green blues, your normal sort of auditor, shy person, what does everyone think of me, green? Or your blue, Mr. Process, is it on a form? Just doing a tick list? That's your blue. They're the first ones. oh my God, look at Ted. And he's got his clothes off and he's tap dancing. And there's Jan, who's the accountant. So we go into our shells when we're out because suddenly we're not the center of attention. We're not the big personality because stick a drink in a green and they're like, ta-da. So weirdly, when you say the word feisty, that's how everyone would describe Lindsay, because they see her when she's out, like, excuse me, fuck you, I won't be spoken to you like that, back off, which I would never do in a million years. I'm turtle under the table at that point.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And also the thing which I picked up is you'd love a sitcom and you'd love a film.
Yes, I would love that.
I'm wondering if you're writing your sitcom and your film.
Yes, I've written a sitcom. I've shared it with one of my favourite actors, but I can't say more than that because I don't want to jinx it, and there's a chance it might happen.
Of course. So it's in process.
It's in process.
And your film?
That's not so much. I'm going down. I just feel like we're in a sort of Dickensian age of volumes rather than one book. It's like Charles Dickens has come back in the form of the box set, is what I mean. And I just feel like 10 episodes is now. Yeah, if I could choose a 2-hour film that everyone loved about my dad, or a 10-part, I think I would choose 10-part. That's the age we're in. It's crossed over now.
Yeah.
Films are like me.
Yeah. And would you be doing more books?
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Yeah. Once this is, I do feel like a volume 2, the stand-up years, is required.
It would be brilliant. It would be brilliant. And for your mum, you said that initially that when you started to take stand-up seriously, she was like, not safe, don't do that. And then she got persuaded.
That was the only bit in the book I was in trouble for, because my mum was like, that's not true. I told you to go for it. So I genuinely misremembered that. And by the time we sort of disagreed on it, it had already gone to print. So what I meant was, my mum was like, you've got a career there, just be careful. No one in our family's ever earned money before. You've got a decent job, you're working as a copywriter, be careful. But if your heart's in it, go for it. So I should have got that across better, to be fair on her. But there was an overriding thing of, be careful.
Which is understandable, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and now, I mean, she must be beyond proud.
Mm. Oh yeah, she loves it. Yeah. Loving life. She's retired. I mean, from a practical point of view, she just stopped cleaning. She doesn't have to clean factories and houses anymore.
Unbelievable.
I mean, we're not like rolling in money. She's not getting like 10 grand a month, but she's at a point where she can live in a 2-bedroom house with Danny, her boyfriend, in Cheshunt, and she doesn't have to work each month. They can't go on posh holidays. They can't go out for dinner every night, but she doesn't have to work.
Brilliant.
What a nice we live.
Brilliant. Because of you?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We pooled our resources to the money, the small amount my dad left, I think, like 40 grand when he died. So what I'd learned about property at that point, we took that 40 grand plus the money from my first tour, and we thought, right, what can we do and invest your money to get you to a point where, because that generation and that class of person would live off that until it was gone, and then be, shit, I'm 75 and I'm still quite healthy, I've got nothing left. Yeah. So I said to Mum, you don't want that to be you in 20 years time. My mum's only 50 odd when my dad died. And so let's find a way to generate a small but sustainable income forever.
Brilliant. And so now, I suppose maybe, like you're saying, it's a bit delicate, but how does she reflect on, obviously she loved your dad. You said he's this guy, but he's got a really good heart underneath. So she must have felt like she loved him, or...
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Yeah. There's the love of her life and all that. He was just a negative person. He was just a very negative person. That's the only way I describe him. Negative. Yeah. Not even angry seems like too strong. He got angry. Just negative. There'll be traffic. It'll be shit. I'll never achieve my dreams. It'll probably be rubbish. I'll probably sprain my ankle. Just negative. Constantly negative. One of the most negative people I've ever known in my entire life.
And do you think that's why you're so positive? Do you think there's a kind of...
Yeah, I think so. Although I definitely have those voices rise up in me, I'm so on it that I'm consciously trying to celebrate the positive all the time.
So in a way, and obviously I hear you, you've done so much and you're healing and you're in this exciting place, which is like the work is happening and it's all happening and you're buzzing. But is there kind of like a part of you going, I've got to be positive. I can't slow down for a second. Otherwise I don't want to go.
Not on a conscious level, but yeah, definitely. I think that's
a drive.
Yeah, I can't switch it off. I couldn't stop doing it if I wanted to.
Couldn't stop doing the creativity.
Yeah, and the drive and the overproductivity, and it's like before I spoke to you today, I did another 2,000 words on. I'm rewriting Dickens's Christmas Carol.
You are.
Just only 5,000 word version, like doing a comedy Essex version, just to put on my Facebook. Why? I don't need to do that, but just for something to do. It's fucking mental, isn't it?
It's brilliant. I mean, it's brilliant, and it's interesting. And so, how do you chill out? Is that with your wife and your
Books,
daughter?
books. I love books. I love films.
You're still reading like proper, not
And audiobooks.
and audiobooks. Brilliant.
And I'll always have an audiobook going. There's a lot of reading to do for Evil Genius. So I'm reading a biography of Henry VIII at the moment, which I'm loving. But then I'll have another book on. I'm reading a book about food and class at the moment, which I'm loving, by Penn Vogler. It's fuck off. But I'm reading a book about by Penn Vogler about class at the moment. It's called, what's it called? Nosh or something like that. Look it up. It's fantastic. Every chapter is amazing. It's like Why Do Northerners Call Dinner Tea and stuff. I just love reading, and I love films, and I love box sets. I mean, for COVID is horrific, but even if I was in a 1-bedroom flat, if I was in a studio, oh, sound's gone weird. I'm getting an echo in the delay. Can you hear that?
It's fine this end. It's fine this end.
So even if I was in a studio flat, I would have been able to still do the things that I unwind. Even if I had no money, all I would need is access to a Kindle and a laptop that could stream.
Brilliant. Because you keep your mind and your imagination active. Can I ask you, because I know you've got a painting of Norman Wisdom.
Yes, it's down the gym actually.
And obviously amazing person, but tell me, what is this? And you're a physical man and you move a lot.
That's it. Physical comedy. And it used to make my dad laugh as well. It just makes me laugh, just his face. And also he turned down Hollywood because his wife left him and he wanted to raise his kids. So he sort of embodies family values. Not that you'd read about that, because again, he wasn't a bell end that put all his life in the newspaper. So it was great. That and Hyde Park's Pissaro's Hyde Park behind me, which is a stroke for stroke copy by an art student, just so I can look at London while I'm not living there.
That's brilliant. Do you miss London then?
Yep. All the time.
Oh, but you're devoted to being in.
I like the family. The family happiness of being up here outweighs pressing a button and the cuisines of the world arrive at my doorstep, or putting one foot out the door and I can see any show in the world, or all the colour and vibrancy of London, which I miss every single second.
Because of that brain food for you, in a way.
I just love being connected. I just love, I fancy Turkish cuisine in 8 minutes, and then I want to go to a cinema at 1 a.m. Boom, done. Can do it.
How is it for you? Obviously, you'll have been asked this loads. That there's so many Russells. There's so many Russells that are entertainers. Is that
when I started stand up, I changed my surname because no one could pronounce it, to Kane, because I thought it'd be really cool. I wish I'd known how many Russells there were in stand up. I would have changed my first name.
Yeah. What would you have changed it to?
I don't know. I would have picked something that sounded good with Kane, Jason or something. I don't know.
I mean, maybe Russell is really good because it's synonymous with comedy, isn't it?
Maybe, but I get a lot of people call me Russell Brand by accident, Russell Howard. People like, oh, it's another Russell. We don't need another Russell. I had it a lot when I started. And even when I get a positive review, the only thing the journalist could think of was, there's another Russell in town. I'm like, shit, I wish I picked a different first name.
Oh, God. And what about your podcast about talking about men, women, feminism? What do men do, women do? How's that for you, doing that podcast?
I love it. It's a space of male mental health that isn't covered. Men's mental health is big in the news at the moment. I think because it's not feminism's fault, but there was, like when a factory makes something amazing, but it accidentally pumps tar out of its back exhaust pipe. So I think what happened with the feminism factory is, while it was quite rightly and brilliantly bringing issues to light and lifting women up, it made a lot of men feel like they even more so should keep their mouths shut about their stuff, because men have been in power since apes stood upright. Therefore, how dare a man say any, women are there over talking about their mental health. The last thing you want to be doing is a man going, actually, men have got issues. Oh, you fucking gammon, you misogynist. Can't you let women have one thing? Okay, I'll just go and kill myself then, which is literally what happens. So I think it got to the point where the male suicide rate went higher and higher and higher. Till I was like, do you know what, girl? There is actually one thing that is worse for men than you. So you're going to have to just pipe down and listen. We fucked up everything else. We're sexist, rapey, wage hogging fucks. We get that. But we are killing ourselves. So you might just want to listen for 2 minutes just for this one, because you never know. It might actually help some of the rapey, wage hogging, toxic shit that you're dealing with because of us. Maybe it's connected. Finally, about last year, people started to listen. So all these wonderful things cropped up with men's serious mental issues, talking about stuff, but nothing cropped up in what I call the sort of laddie mental health area. And that's really needed, because Terry the Tyler is probably not going to go to a men's group and talk about his friend who hung himself. He might listen to my podcast where we talk about wanking for 5 minutes, then talk about suicide. Maybe.
Really good point. Really important point, which is back to your thing on politics as well. If you make it too serious, no one wants to listen. And the same with talking about mental health issues. There has to be some creativity and fun in order to engage people. Otherwise, they switch off. They can't hear. They won't listen. So it's so interesting that you're managing to, in a way, your brain is managing to engage in so many things all at once in so many areas.
I think I'm just living life. It's just stuff I'm interested in and stuff I am quite narrow focused. So on my manager's, I was on mine for a while, above my desk and above my manager's desk and above mine for when I first signed with this new manager 4 years ago. And I was doing well, but the plane was climbing, but at a slower rate, shall we say.
Off the curb?
Yeah, I changed from Avalon to Off the Curb.
Yeah.
And I've got no complaints about Avalon. They're fantastic. They've given me my whole life. But I was not sticking to my cardinal rule was, can you be funny on it? ? I know I'm not been cracking jokes 10 a penny today, but mostly I will say no to everything that can't have me arsing around on it. That's just my rule, because that's the gift I've been given. And when a politician starts to do Strictly, or when a singer tries to do acting, it normally doesn't end well. And you might miss out on it. So I think, can I be funny about it? So yes, it seems like I'm spreading myself over memoir and mental health, but it's always got humor at the core.
Brilliant.
Always. And before, I was doing things like going on Question Time and doing well. What the fuck am I doing well on Question Time? What's the point? Do I want to be a politician? No. Do I want people to think I'm a serious political mind? No. Do I want people to be impressed how clever and political I am? 100% no. Why you want it then? The answer is ego. Don't do it again.
So really follow your heart, like the Joseph Campbell thing. Follow your bliss, follow your heart.
I think, no, actually, my heart says go and show off and show everyone how clever you are. So I have to ignore my heart. I have to follow my business plan, which is be funny as fuck.
Yeah.
And I thought on Jonathan Ross, although the chat went serious about mental health, I was booked for being funny, so it was a safe space for me to be in.
It's like Daniel Kitson, he only does what he wants in his way, and it works for him. And if you do, you're carving out, although you're uber successful, actually, especially now, today even, but on so many levels, it's because you've got it really straight about where you're going, what you're doing, and how you're doing it.
It takes a lot of willpower, though. For example, a very, very high-profile dancing show contacted me at the beginning of this year, when I knew I wasn't going to have any stand-up in the diary. So what's the reason to say no? My mother-in-law is a former professional dancer. She used to dance actually on Come Dancing, the one Terry Wogan used to host. So what's the reason to say no? Well, the reason to say no is it's hard to be funny on that particular show. And if you are funny on it, you're voted out early for not taking the dancing seriously. You get a 2-minute interview at the end. I just thought, it's ego. I'm a good dancer, you see. So it appeals to my ego. So I'd be able to show off and everyone think I'm a great dancer. Why? I've been given this one talent to make people laugh. Yeah. And until that runs out, I don't really want to do anything else.
So you stay with what's right for you. And so how do you, considering you do 2 podcasts that I know of, lots of interviews, stand-up comedy, you do your caning regularly, brilliant. Yep. You've just done a book, now you're promoting your book, you've written a sitcom, maybe you're writing the film, I don't know. How do you go, right, the book gets this much time, the sitcom gets this time, then I fit that. Do you just diarize what you're doing?
Not really. My brain can only write in the morning, so that decides that.
Right.
When I'm talking about prose and funny journalism, if I need to write jokes for a show I'm going on, once it gets to this time, I'm done. If I put this up for you and tried to write anything, it would just be useless. So that decides that. There are no stand-up gigs in the morning, so I can't work on those. I improvise most of my stand-up on stage in front of people. I go on with a bullet point, like funny story about Lindsay in the cafe, but I would never write it out. So it sorts itself out, really.
Yeah. So in a way, writing's your morning, and then you'll fit other stuff around it, and then you'll do your caning in the morning then too.
Yeah, I would do that late morning. I would improvise that on camera. I would take a bullet point or two. I might think up something else while I'm combing my hair and write it down, but I wouldn't like with a script. It's all improvised.
It's all improvised, and then you edit it.
Yeah, so I would improvise for about 10 minutes. So the last one I did, I think, was on. I knew they were going to change the law to do with Christmas, so I thought I'll get this one out. I had 10 minutes before I left the place I was staying in London, because I've been staying over for the Jonathan Ross show. So the next morning, I thought, right, I'll just improvise 10 minutes about Boris's muddled Christmas policy. I wrote 3 bullets down about him, like about it not affecting people who at Christmas, but it does affect Diwali. I thought that's funny, but I didn't write the joke. I just thought Diwali, and then I just start speaking because there's no pressure, no one there. It's just me with my phone stuck to a light, and I do that for about 8-9 minutes, and then I'll cut it down to 3 or 4.
Brilliant. So in a way, has this year kind of, in a way, although obviously you probably missed the live, has it given you strange gifts this year with working?
I would say, yeah, after about June, yeah. The March, April, May was pretty scary. I'm lucky my tour had just paid out, so it's a ridiculous fear. Again, it's a working class thing, but there's no furlough. There's literally not one penny coming from anywhere. Now, I mean, there's literally nothing. I was lucky. I'm not saying I didn't have a shitload of cash from my tour. I did, but because of the way I'm made, I'm not to sit around with nothing coming. I've never done it in my life. There was no way of earning money. There was no way of doing anything. And everyone's like, well, you paid a lot of money in tax. You're entitled to some furlough thing. And I'm like, I daren't claim it because you end up in the newspaper. And I just thought I need to find a way. And then thankfully the socially distanced thing started coming, and, it's ended up being a bumper year. I feel bad even mentioning it because a lot of people really are without money, not pretend fear like I had, with loads and loads of savings. So I don't know what my fear was, but it's just off a childhood of always be earning.
It's understandable, isn't it? Especially, your programming is solid, isn't it?
It really is, yeah.
Dave. So now, in a way, it's a bit like, I mean, you said this in a way, like it was a pisser that Dave died just before your first gig.
I know.
But in some ways, because Dave died, you could.
I know. The king is dead, long live the king. It was weird. It released all these stories. Yeah. A coal mine collapsing, but oil coming through.
Yeah. And, because there's this strange thing in the gorilla community that it's often the beta gorillas get the females pregnant. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
They let the silverbacks think they've done it, so that silverbacks still protect the community.
That is deep.
It's often the beta ones that are actually impregnating, and they're actually having the more, love, whatever, those
Sounds
connections.
It's like stand-up versus boxing, isn't it?
Yeah.
The boxers look like the burly ones, but the stand-ups are shagging senseless outside the ring.
Yeah. Is it? Yeah. Yeah. Because this is I think you've talked about this as well, that when you had a year being single, it was a shag fest.
Well, I've never been single in my entire life from the age of 16. I've always had a steady girlfriend, always. So I've never even been out like on a one-night date type thing, which seems unbelievable, but it's completely true. So to get to like 35 years old without ever having a single experience like that, that's pretty delayed. I was obviously very sexually experienced because I've had 5 girlfriends. In fact, I think people who are in long-term relationships are probably have better sexual experience than those who have short experiences with lots of people, because you don't learn bodies properly. You don't learn what people like. That said, I was unaccustomed to the experience of in dating and random encounters. So that was fun mostly, but then in the end a bit like sort of soulless.
Yeah. And I know you're passionate about sex education coming in earlier as well into British schools. Like
Yeah, I think it's
primary.
linked. I think our teenage pregnancy rate is linked to our late.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it just, you don't need Poirot to figure that one out.
So that was the wonderful Russell Kane. I hope you're as inspired as I am by him. What an amazing guy, you know, and so little that sorted him out and got him on the road. And, you know, as somebody, you know, who's involved in therapy and has therapy, has had a lot of therapy, I'm just amazed by people who seem to be able to get themselves really centered with very little help, it seems, or maybe it's the significant help that they've got. So, and then be so interested in creating a very solid life for themselves and helping others. So, what a great guy. It was a great honour to speak to him. And I hope you're tuning in for more episodes. Thanks very much.